Hello everyone, my name is Kay Wee,
My name is Viknesh.
and this is a new episode, the May episode of Coming Attractions with the Asian Film Archive. And today we are going to talk about, naturally, May's program. And I think if you guys watched last month's episode, we actually did mention a bit about what will be coming up in May. And today's task will be to continue introducing what will be happening with Singular Screens, which is a film program under SIFA, which is the Singapore International Festival of the Arts, and it's curated by the Asian Film Archive, us actually. So, but before that, we actually wanted to talk about a bonus screening that would be happening as an extension from last month's Reframe program, A Time to Resist. So I'll let Viknesh speak about that a bit.
Yeah. So this film, it's actually meant to be part of the original lineup that concluded on 25th April, but we only recently received the rating, the classification for this, and we thought, let's just screen it as soon as possible, as close as possible to the original dates. So this is a film called Reason by filmmaker Anand Patwardhan. It's a very monumental documentary, probably one of the most important records of the rise of Hindu nationalism or Hindu fascism in present-day India. And Anand Patwardhan is a filmmaker who has, he's really the quintessential activist filmmaker. He's been making films since the mid-70s, and he has his roots in, as an activist himself. As a student, when he was in America, he actually worked alongside Cesar Chavez, the famous civil rights activist who campaigned on behalf of Mexican-American farmers and workers back in the 70s. So Anand Patwardhan's filmography is really a very incisive document on the various important socio-political events in India's history of the past 30 to 40 years. And this film is no exception. It's a huge documentary. It's told in 8 chapters and it's 4 hours long. And what he really gives you is a span of what caused these powers to rise up in India that are ultra-nationalists, ultra-fascists, and are looking to silence the voices of people and people in society who are a bit more downtrodden or who are unable to have their voices heard. And Patwardhan himself his films are also routinely prevented from being shown, or they find a lot of difficulties being shown in India, because his work is very incisive, it's very direct, and he's extremely critical of people in power, people such as Narendra Modi, the current Prime Minister of India, and also people who belong to his party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and associated people that are in power. So because of these, again, very direct criticism he has, his films find a hard time to be screened. And in fact, there have been cases of people organizing screenings and, they've been thrown in jail. And so, it's something that I believe Reason has not been officially theatrically premiered in India. His films are often organized in clandestine screenings, and I think only very recently it had its official online premiere in India. So, and I don't think his films have screened in India, in Singapore even. So this particular screening we are hosting on 12th May on Wednesday is very special, and I cannot talk about this film enough. It is a very rare opportunity to find out really about these present-day forces in India and all the subsequent social, cultural, and political issues that are plaguing India today. Very timely, given the current crisis of the coronavirus pandemic in many parts of India, which actually, if you see it within the context of this film, you can draw a lot of threads as well. So 12th May, Wednesday, we'll be screening at 7 p.m. earlier than our usual screenings. We usually start at 8 p.m. And it's a 4-hour film. The filmmaker has advised that it be watched in 2 parts. So so as to, because there's a lot of information coming at you and you kind of need a bit of time to digest them. So it's a heavy film, but definitely something that you will not regret watching. Very educational and informative. So that is our special screening. That is part of Reframe A Time to Resist. That will be happening. Yeah.
Our closing film. So
closing
please
film.
join us.
That's right.
A mob beat to death 50-year-old Iklok after rumors that his family had allegedly consumed beef.
फादर को मैंने देखा था लास्ट डे, जब देखने पर भी रो कांप जाए।
जब घर में घुसे वो, बस किसी के हाथ में लाठी के डंडे, बेड के नीचे से ईंटें निकाली, उसको मारने लगे। भैया को, पापा जी को टांग पकड़ के घसीटते हुए ले गए बाहर। पापा जी को और हमें बात करने का मौका ही नहीं दिया उन्होंने। बस कह रहे थे कि तुम्हें जिंदा नहीं छोड़ेंगे, तुमने गाय काट दिए।
दलितों पे अत्याचार नहीं सहेंगे, नहीं सहेंगे, नहीं सहेंगे, गंदा काम नहीं करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे, संडा साफ नहीं करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे।
दलित आंदोलन एक आत्मसम्मान की लड़ाई है और स्वाभिमान का आंदोलन है। तो मेरे साथ 2 मिनट के लिए खड़े हो जाएं। ये शपथ लेते हैं, आज के बाद गटर में उतरेंगे नहीं, मरे हुए पशु के निकाल का काम भी करेंगे नहीं।
So that was Reason, our closing film for Reframe A Time to Resist. And yeah, as what Viknesh has said, we've eked out a screening slot especially for this occasion, and it's a very rare screening, so please join us if you can. And moving forward to the rest of May, we will be continuing our discussions about Singular Screens, which is a film program under the Singapore International Festival of the Arts and curated by us, the Asian Film Archive. So we've introduced 2 titles from the last episode, NP and The Year of Discovery, and today we'll continue to talk about a couple more titles that we really want to recommend to our audiences. Yep. So let me begin, because so I've prepared 2 titles, and I specially prepared them with a certain affinity to the festival itself. So if people know about SIFA, so SIFA is really quite a festival that is centered around performing arts or theatrical kind of like presentations. So we've also taken into account and wanted to find films that kind of speak to different types of art forms, especially in terms of like dance and theatre. So I've chosen here 2 titles, 2 documentaries, or kind of like mixed documentaries. So the first title I want to discuss is called Overtures, directed by Louis Henderson and Oliver Mabeuf. So they co-created this work with this international Haitian arts troupe called The Living and the Dead Ensemble. So it's really a very collaborative work, but it amalgamates like filmed improvisational theatre with documentary elements at the same time. So this is one of the, I think, interesting singular points of the film. So it was originally intended as a documentation of the theatre group itself, adapting, translating, and rehearsing the play Monsieur Toussaint by Edward Glisson. But then this film or this narrative actually just branches out, unfolds into like many different ideas and themes and arranged in interconnected episodes. So just a bit of a tidbit of what really this film is about. It's set in Haiti, and of course this troupe and this whole story is based in Haitian history. So the film sets off in a French archive where a young man researches the life of Toussaint in the letters and notes written by this man. So this man, I have to give a bit of background who he is. He is Toussaint Louverture, and a very icon of independence in Haiti, as well as a general best known as the leader of the Haitian Revolution. So simply put, he's like really one of the founding members or founding icons that Haitians look up to. So with that, with his own history kind of bleeds through the text, performances, discussions, and music performed by the Living and the Dead Ensemble. And then through that, we see actually also not just the rehearsed, documented performance, but also the behind the scenes, because what these ideals that this icon kind of like exudes actually bleeds into Haitian culture and present contemporary life. So then we have like just certain conversations that happens in this kind of three-parter film. So like conversations with like younger ensemble members talking about being a citizen of the world instead of being a citizen of just the Africanness or like the Haiti itself. Whereas there are like certain conversations about identity, basically national identity or world identity through that. Then there's also a very prolonged discussion about the West's tendency to appropriate cultural traditions, which of course happened with Haiti, of course with the history of the French. Like an example is like how these actors themselves were discussing kind of like behind the scenes, like white people arriving on the island to try their hand in voodoo, which is like this this religion that was like born out of the country itself. So it was mentioned that this is something that will not succeed because it's something that's only in their DNA, in their blood. So there's a lot of ideas about nationalism and anti-nationalism in a way. So in another sequence, two female members actually provided a counter perspective to the history of what was talked about in this film. They're just wondering where the women are, in this history. Like even the history of the oppressed eradicates the female counterparts. And after all, everyone will agree that Toussaint would have gotten nowhere without his wife, which of course was not as celebrated as himself. So there are a lot of these conversations that are very timely, embedded within this real fabric of this piece that is quite hard to define, but I think again it's something that has affinities to theatre making, the process of creation, and about using archives and the legacies of national histories to talk about who they are today. So I think this is a very special, I think one screening only, and then for like people who are interested in Haitian culture, which they might not be familiar with, people who are interested in performance making, and just anyone who's interested in a different experience of a documentary, please join us for this film.
Je suis Toussaint l'ouverture. Mon nom s'est peut-être fait connaître jusqu'à vous. J'ai entrepris la vengeance de ma race. Je veux que la liberté et l'égalité règnent à Saint-Domingue. Je travaille à les faire exister. Unissez-vous, frères, et combattez avec moi pour la même cause. Déracinez avec moi l'arbre de l'esclavage. est arrivé où le voile épais qui obscurcissait, la lumière doit tomber.
J'ai traversé les mers jusqu'au froid Jura. L'homme a vu mort pour Saint-Laurent. Fantôme dans le fort de jour. J'écris ma lutte à même les roches préhistoriques de la France. Je trace mes lettres dans le sédiment national.
N'a pas gardé ma mauvais jet, nous pas pardonner. Après tout le temps ça, me faire route là dans l'autre sens là. Il est trop tard pour m'excuser. Il est trop tard pour m'expliquer bataille m'a mené. Toujours été révolution pour nous faire amis. Nous ouais qui j'en travaille là en pile. Mais flammes nous en bas jamais terre. N'a pas bâti dans un titan. On sentit ça. N'a pas bâti dans un titan.
So that was the trailer for Overtures by the Living and Dead Ensemble. The next film I'm going to be talking about also shares certain affinities in terms of performing arts. This one is one of our two Singaporean films. This one in particular is by Liao Jie Kai, and it's called Light of a Burning Moth. It's a film that really combines cinema and dance in this sort of subgenre commonly known as dance film or dance cinema in some circles. So really like to highlight the work of Liao Jie Kai here. He's he's personally one of my favorite filmmakers from Singapore and also from the region. And this is actually his fourth feature film. He's also had worked across different platforms. He's made short films, video installations. So he's been in the white cube and the black cube, as it were, both in the cinema space and also in gallery spaces. What I like about him is that he's a filmmaker who's constantly experimenting with the form, whether it's pushing the plasticity of cinema itself or film itself, or whether it's about playing with the narrative or structural boundaries of cinema. So in a particular era of his work, he was really toying with film as a medium. He would film on expired film stock, or he would scratch on them, or he would make us aware that what he's playing with is film itself. So he did a lot of works on 16mm film and so on. In his past few years, he's been very interested in dance as a medium and how he can use cinema to capture or even just combine with movement itself. So he's done a couple of short films, and actually his most recent feature film, Far Away My Shadow Wandered, is also a dance film, and that premiered last year at the Singapore International Film Festival. So this film that I'm talking about now is actually, I believe it was done almost back to back. And it was done while he was pursuing his master's in film in the Tokyo University of Arts. And this university is quite special in that its film students are able to actually do feature films. And this is something that was made, under the auspices of the university. And it is so the kind of main plot of the story is we see two performers, one a dancer and the other person is a sort of an actor and a movement artist of two different generations. The younger performer is a woman. She's a dancer, and she is kind of sending these correspondences to this older male actor who's towards the last leg of his career and also perhaps even the last leg of his life. So they share these wonderful correspondences, reflecting on their life, their art. And through that, they are almost coming to terms with certain traumas in their life. For the dancer, she's coming to terms with the loss of her mother, who has disappeared. And for the older man, he's coming to terms with, the end of a certain era for him. And through these correspondences, there's a certain healing process, there's a certain realization process, and a lot of this is portrayed through, of course, the text, the writing, but a lot of the action and the emotive quality of the film comes out through the movements. And Kay captures this really beautifully through a lot of very static shots, and you just see people, the actors, seamlessly moving from normal sort of natural acting into stylized movements, and the grace and the fluidity of such movements really come across very beautifully through the power of cinema. So this is a film that I would highly recommend. We have 2 screenings of it, and I believe the screenings are being filled up pretty fast, because support for our local cinema is very encouraging to see. So that's something I would recommend. Light of a Burning Moth by Liao Jie-kai.
あなたにお会いしてから何年も経ってしまいましたが、私のことを覚えていらっしゃるでしょうか。あの海と家、それは私の記憶の中に強く残っていて、時々夢に出てくることもありました。
リン、行くよ。
私はもう疲れた。普通の人間に生まれ変わるんだ。
目が覚めた時、私の沈黙は修行ではなくなりました。本当に声が出せなくなったのです。セイ、下にいるの？
Okay, so next up, back to me. Yeah, we're going to continue this thread about theatre making and movement and dance with this film, my next recommendation. It's a film called If It Were Love by Patrick Chiha. So this is a film that was actually a documentation of a performance called Crowd, directed by choreographer director Giselle Vien's piece. So it's quite interesting because it's actually something that was presented at SIFA itself 2 years ago in 2019. So of course that was one of the interest points of why we decided to pick up this film, because it was a nice kind of like tribute to the main kind of like performing arts programming as well, and how cinema can kind of come in and even provide a different perspective. So talking about dance, talking about movement, I think this film really captures this essence of it. It's the play itself. If people don't already know, it's inspired by the techno rave scene of 1990s Berlin, and it unleashes this like cathartic power of like 15 young dancers who perform as clubbers at an open field rave party. So if anyone has watched this this performance live, which I actually had the chance to do it myself, like it really is like this time capsule where like the dancers actually like play with like slow motion with the different tempos and pulsating like beats that really defines the movements of this. And of course within this whole performance there were a lot of like moments of intimacy, moments of aggression that that really kind of like magnifies when you watch it. So imagine when the camera has the privilege to go up close to these performers. So you actually see every single pulsation, every moment that is amplified by the camera's lens. And then with that, with this intimacy, this film is a bit special because it kind of like blurs again life and art when it gets to go behind the scenes again with this film to really document the performers themselves, which in the backstage they talk about how maybe they find it a bit hard to withdraw themselves from the characters of the performance, about like their own sexuality as well, about how they kind of like lived in that moment on stage where like there are moments where the performers might kiss or might not kiss. I mean, it depends on each performance actually, and then they talk about that specific moment, that tension that happens. So it is also a real, I think, homage to performing as well, especially like live performers having to go through a certain process that they leave themselves on the stage, and then how do you kind of recollect yourself when you go backstage and process those emotions. So I think this film, well, it's kind of like termed as a documentary, but perhaps this whole confessional moments in very intimate dialogues could be very much part of the choreography of the film as well. So again, I think especially it should be of interest to people who live on the stage, performs on the stage. But of course, for anyone who has watched Crowd during SIFA in Singapore, I think this will be a real treat to see what actually goes on perhaps behind the scenes. So another behind the scenes recommendation from me, another theatre making, performance making inspired piece, and this is our way of curating films that have certain affinities to SIFA itself. So that is my last recommendation for this episode.
This is my time. I completely need this. Maybe a kiss. Everybody else feels love and it's too late. I went too far. Then I feel like just one more time, one more moment of feeling close to him. See the dust rise from his clothes when they move.
Right, so that was If It Were Love, and on the theme of performing and performances, we've largely looked at human performers, but this last film that I'm going to be talking about will be about animal performers.
You think they're performing?
Yeah, you see, that's the kind of questions that we like. Yeah.
Anyway.
So this is a documentary called Gunda by Russian documentarian Viktor Kozakovsky. And the star of this film is really a pig called Gunda, and about her piglets. And along with Gunda and her piglets, we also see their farm friends such as chickens and cows and so on. But unlike the kind of nature documentaries that one might be used to seeing, there's no narration. There is no human intervention in the narrative, other than of course humans filming it. But there are no humans intervening in our viewership of these animals. And I really mean it when I talk about animal performers, because you really start to see their sentience really coming through. focusing on animals like that for such a long period of time without any really like narration, you really get to see, you really start to see their emotions, you start to see personality, character, and so on. And it's all wonderfully shot in like black and white, and it's very poetic. So it is it's a very special film in that sense. I mean, everybody loves a good David Attenborough documentary, some BBC nature stuff, but this is unlike anything else in this genre. And there's definitely an ecological aspect to it. The filmmaker Victor Kosakovsky is, in a sense, he's a vegan, and he's also very passionate about ecological issues. And the executive producer of the film, actor Joaquin Phoenix, he's also a climate activist, an environmental activist, and a vegan. And so there's definitely an intention there to raise awareness, but it is not like in your face. There isn't, there aren't like facts and figures and pie charts and percentages and all of that. It's really, you're really confronted with the beauty of nature. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending really makes you reflect and makes you even think, maybe reconsider your dietary preferences, perhaps. All in all, a film that, it's a very languid pace, but it really sits inside you and makes you want to think about the sentience of these beings that we kind of take for granted, perhaps. And also related to the film, I also wanted to highlight the work of Anticipate Pictures. They are a Singapore-based distributor they're the distributors of Gunda. They're like a boutique distribution company. They've been around for a number of years, and Gunda is just one of the many films that they have brought to Singapore and continue to do so. And it's work of people such as, or organizations such as this, that really enrich our cinema landscape. And we hope that more of such people will come about in the scene and provide us with many wonderful films that are not just your mainstays, your blockbusters, your Oscar winners. So many reasons to come and watch this film. So do check out Gunda.
So those are all the trailers for the 4 films that we recommended today. So of course there are also other films that we did not get to mention in over these 2 episodes that you should check out. I believe some films are actually sold out at this moment, which is great news to us, maybe not such great news to you, but then there are many films that are still available for sale. So please go to the CIFA website over the singular screens program to grab your tickets right now. And also, just to mention, there's also VOD as well for certain titles. So if you are still cautious about coming out to the theaters, coming to the Oldham Theatre, then that option is still available for you to watch it in the comforts of your home.
Yeah, at least half of the lineup will be on video on demand. Yeah.
So with singular screens, of course, I think there were a lot of topics that we are conscious of in terms of talking about the world right now, the issues right now, and of course in terms of its affinities with performance, and then with such kind of like heavy themes, but still a lot of light moments within this program. We wanted to just tease you with a bit of what will be happening in June, which hopefully would bring a certain levity to your palate in the month. So
yeah. So for June, we're kind of doing this, quite fun, quite a small program. It's called Seasons in the Sun. It's a program that kind of pays tribute to the sunny holidays that we've all lost over the past year. Some people might be traveling, but no one's really traveling for tourism in that sense.
Yep.
So we thought, why not look at some films that really evoke this sense of like wanting to have a getaway, going somewhere sunny, by the beach perhaps,
escapism,
having a day trip. These are all things that we hope these films would bring up. I mean, we're not going to really review the titles right now, but we can say that we are looking at 6 titles. And they'll be from different parts of Asia. We've tried to create as much diversity through the countries, but also through the decades. We have films from the 90s, 2000s.
All the way to a few years ago.
Yeah, just quite recent films. So, yeah.
They won't be as melancholic as the song, Seasons in the Sun.
Yeah.
So they're also coming with different tones and different experiences as well, as you would if you travel to a new place and find new encounters. So I hope that evokes the spirit of traveling within the cinemas, even if we can't do it physically in real life. So hopefully this program provides a certain escape for you. And with that, we will end this month's episode. So please do check out Reason, and do check out the Singular Screens program, and look forward to our June's program, Seasons in the Sun, which we'll talk about more next episode. So with that, I'm Kay Wee.
I'm Viknesh. Thank you once again to SGCR for this great partnership. Go to SGCR's website, check out all their podcasts, all their content, and we will see you next month.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.